Hold on one second. We're about to get to the bottom of this, ladies and gentlemen. This don't make no sense whatsoever. Welcome to the Dark Waters channel, where we explore mysteries, figure out the truth, dive into politics, and anything else you want to know about. That's what we're doing over here, baby. Let's go. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? You are back with James Williams, the one and only Dark Waters, and I'm excited. How many times over the past 10 years have you heard me say that I was excited? Very few times. You want to know why? Because there's very few things that excite me. You want to know why? Because I've seen a lot in my life, man. I've lived through a lot. I've seen a lot. I've lost a lot. I've won a lot. But I'm excited for you, ladies and gentlemen, because we've reached the point to where I can start to bring sponsors and people on the show that I know can make a difference for you. Why? Because if you're watching a YouTube channel, you're investing time and energy in your life into someone like me, I should be able to give something back to you. Honestly, you're giving me your attention, right? That's what you're doing. You're paying me an attention, because that's how the whole social media system is set up, how the conspiracy of the social media is set up to steal your attention. So you pay me with your attention. And now it's time for me to give something back to you. And I'm excited about having Jonathan Rose on from Genesis Gold Group, because we can talk about things that I really believe are very important for you in your life. And what I'm even more excited about, ladies and gentlemen, is 2012, 13, when I had my radio show and we talked about finance, the time was too early. We were saying gold is going to hit $3,000 an ounce and silver is going to hit this, but people couldn't see it. Now we're in a market where you can see the truth. You don't have to predict the truth. You can see the truth. And so it's even more of a great opportunity for you guys. So without any further delay, Jonathan, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm very well. Thank you, James, for having me here today. It's a pleasure to be on air with you.
Man, I'm honored to have you here. And it truly is a time in the commodities markets and the crypto markets. It's the time that everybody talked about back then now. And what kind of bothers me, and not in a bad way, but it just alerts me to the fact that if we've reached the time period that people were talking about in the early 2000s and we're there at that pivotal point now, is where we're going to go. But before we dig into that, ladies and gentlemen, I want Jonathan to tell you guys just a little bit about his background. I've had the opportunity to read his background. 100% amazing background. I'm talking about the type of guy that very few people even have access to. You know, a kind of guy that you would be proud to have in your network. Jonathan, share with people just a little bit about your background and how you started in minerals.
Oh gosh, so obviously you could probably tell straight away from my accent. I'm not from here. I'm from Oklahoma. No, not really. Grew up in London. Grew up in London, England. When I was 18, I was very fortunate to have an opportunity to work in the city in London, and I worked for many big American banks: Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, which led me to working on the London Metal Exchange. And the London Metal Exchange is equivalent to the New York Stock Exchange, where you see people wearing those colored kind of golf blazers. They're screaming, they're yelling, they're throwing their hands up in the air. So I was very fortunate to be involved in finance from an early age, and that's all I've ever done. And working on the London Metal Exchange, I was actually working in what we call base metals, which was aluminum, copper, zinc, tin, lead. And then next to me was the precious metals trading pit, smaller than the base metals. But precious metals kind of always had a ring to it to me. I was always gravitated specifically to assets like gold, because my grandfather every year would actually give me, for Christmas, he would give me these British gold sovereign coins. And I still have those coins today. And now I gave them to my children. But what's amazing, it just reinforced my early belief, because they're worth more today than they were even back then. And when I used to be interested in the precious metals kind of trading pit, I was very fortunate to work with some of the best famed traders in London. And I'd always ask them, you know, if you're ever going to invest in metals, what's the best way to do it? Because what we were trading was futures contracts, electronically traded funds, proper trading, graphs, kind of complicated because it was for a very much more of a corporate structure. But I never forget one gentleman who would always say to me, he said, Jonathan, if you're ever going to invest in gold, always physically hold on to it, because if you don't hold it, you don't own it. Right. So that kind of always kind of struck a bell with me. And as the years progressed, I did switch over to precious metals. I did switch over to tangible assets. And as I became older, I kind of made a great reputation for myself, not just in London, but in America. And then I started consulting for these big banks. I consulted for a European Asian bank called HSBC. I consulted for AIG, where they flew me out actually to Asia for 6 months. And I was actually training their financial advisors on how to sell gold, because in the early 2000s, over in Asia, specifically, China, Malaysia, Singapore, how they would buy gold was actually through gold jewelry, which was very interesting back then. And they didn't buy coins or bars, because jewelry they were paying a premium for, and they were trying to switch the mindset into realizing if you're going to buy gold, you want it in a physical form where it's pure, because with a jewelry or bracelet or necklace, you're paying for not just the intrinsic value, but the design of it. It's not pure gold, maybe 14, 18 karat versus 22, 24. So that was very interesting. Also helped HSBC establish gold depositories in Asia. And then when I came back to America in the early 2000s, I really started working more on the retail side and helping people understand the importance of a diversified portfolio, including metals like gold and silver, but also putting gold and silver tax-free into retirement plans like an IRA or 401k. And there's a little saying in the industry that you don't wait to buy gold, you buy gold and wait. And
Right.
that's been so true. And in fact, I even remember, being on a stage in Southeast Asia, telling people that one day gold will hit $2,000 an ounce. And they would all laugh in the audience because, back then gold was like sub 1,000. I got involved in gold when it was $264 an ounce. So to see it go from $264 to new highs of 3,000, not only does it instill my belief in really what gold provides: a hedge against instability, a hedge against volatility, a hedge against currency devaluations. It just goes to show that over periods of time, when you look at a track record of an investment, particularly commodities, it's done one thing and one thing really well, and that's continued to accelerate upwards. Now, James, that's not the reason why I buy it. And I try to educate people on the fact that, look, you're not going to make $1 million overnight with gold. That's not the psychology behind it. We do this for safety and security and as a hedge. And it's just a byproduct of all the craziness that's happening in the world right now, that gold will continue to climb. So that's kind of like a very short runway from start to finish of how I started and where we're at right now. But I still stand behind a couple of assets out there, with gold being one of them, that it's an integral part of what I say is a balanced portfolio.
Well, I'll tell you, going back to 2005, when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans, I'm going to tell you, John, the one thing I regret the most is when that hurricane came, we saw it, but it never dawned on us that it would be so disastrous, right? And so when I evacuated, I left my gold in the safe because we had been through so many hurricanes. It was like, okay, this is going to hit, the power going to go out and you'll be back. Man, to go back and find your whole safe missing, like the whole safe gone, because they didn't let you back into the city for 2 months and your doors kicked in and the whole everything is gone. I was like, that's the one thing I that pissed me off more than anything, was all our gold was gone. Now, I ended up having a friend of mine who had his safe in the attic, and I had like 2 bars of gold in there. It wasn't nothing super fantastic, but nonetheless, that was the only thing I was able to keep from what I accumulated with gold from prior to Katrina. And it was insane, because you're talking about gold was $200-300 an ounce, and now it's thousands of dollars per ounce. And I think it's amazing that you're right. It's not something that you expect to just skyrocket as an investment, but it is an investment that hedges you against all the turmoil that's going into the world. Let me pull out my shovel and dig for a minute, just to so the audience can get to know you better. If you were to go back and look at 12-year-old, 13-year-old Jonathan, did 12-year-old, 13-year-old Jonathan know that he wanted to be in precious metals? Did 12, 13-year-old Jonathan say, I want to be an actor, I want to be a movie star? What was it that at that age, were you aware of this? Because there are certain people that I met, and sometimes it's family factors, where their family has like this understanding of finance, or family says, well, son, this is what you need to do. And then there's other people who they just knew at that age, like my son now, he wants to be a pilot. He is in flight school. This guy knew he wanted to be a pilot when he was 15 years old. He's like, yeah, Pops, I'm going to be a pilot. And he's off to the races. What were you at 12, 13 years old as it pertains to your life goals? What were you thinking? Now, somebody may say, well, GW, that don't make any sense. No, it makes a whole bunch of sense, because I want to know how you were then, and that I can have an understanding of how you are now, how you got to where you are now.
That's a great question. And I love this question. I don't think anyone's asked me this question before. And some people may laugh when they hear my answer. So 12, 13 years old, I'm at home. I'm watching shows like Superman on TV, watching my mum doing the ironing next to me, doing the house chores. And I'll kind of come back to it because it's kind of almost full circle. But at an early age, I think the influence for me on TV was America. Everything was just so bigger and better in America. Everything was just the way I envisioned my life. And so from an early age, probably even before 12, probably maybe, 7, 8, 9, I used to tell my parents, when I'm old enough, I'm going to move to America. And at first they thought it was very cute. And then it got to the point where my dad would say to me, stop telling your mother that you're moving to America. She's getting very upset and she's having a go at me in the evening. And it was like, I talked it into existence. So I think at that age, I didn't know that I'd end up in finance, even though, like I said, I had a gravity towards, coins and something I just knew when you held that, it had value to it. But I knew that I always would want to be in America. And I mentioned the show Superman to you because I used to sit there and watch that with Dean Cain as a child. And if you go to our website now, Dean Cain is one of our spokesperson. And it's so funny. And I used to live in Malibu, and that's actually where I met Dean. So we actually became friends. I always used to tell him, it's so bizarre we became friends. But let me tell you something kind of embarrassing. But I used to grow up watching you on TV, and here we are now having dinner together and hanging out. And he's such a laid-back gentleman and just so down to earth. So, I always knew I wanted to be in America. And I guess, James, I spoke it into existence and it happened. But I will say working for American banks gave me the opportunity to come to America. If it wasn't for the fact that I worked for companies like Merrill Lynch and Morgan Stanley and worked on the London Metal Exchange, I probably wouldn't have had the option to come to America. So it was kind of a natural progression for me. It wasn't something that I was trying to put a square peg in a circle. It just naturally happened. But I'm a big believer in self-manifesting what you want in life, and maybe that's why for me that actually happened. And it was a great youth, a great great childhood I had. And I've been in America now longer than I've lived in England. I have 2 children, and I have twins, a boy and a girl, first generation Americans, I guess you would say, and absolutely love it over here. Don't like the fiscal policies and the politics here in California. It's not the same California that I once moved to. So will I stay in California forever? Probably not. Will I stay in America? Absolutely. But I don't think California. I think it's, there's a beginning and an end. And California's got a lot of troubles right now. And unless they can fix those troubles, it's no reason why people are beginning to, flee the state.
No, it makes all the sense in the world. And guys, just so you know, the reason why I wanted to pose that question is, you see, in this environment that we're in right now, the political environment, the social political environment, see, people make you forget that we all have things in common. And everyone was a 12, 13-year-old that was ambitious for something. This is one of the things I got from talking to people about their stories over the years is I would go back to that age and I would say, man, what were you thinking? Did you ever see yourself in this scenario? And they'd be like, well, James, man, I want to be a police officer, or I want to do this. And you'll be amazed at how many people's lives they made a decision at that very young age, and they had no clue where it would lead them to. Sometimes it let them up, sometimes let them down, but they made a decision at a very young age. And for me, I've decided when I was 13 years old, I was taking apart a VCR, literally taking apart the VCR, just took the whole thing apart. And I took it apart, put it back together. I said, I want to be an engineer. And so I ended up going to school for electrical engineering. Taking apart a VCR has nothing to do with being an engineer, but it just was dawned in my mind and dawned on my head that that's what I want to do. And I pursued it. And guys, the reason why I say this is I want you to understand that success is a product of not only just your desires and your goals and your thoughts and your dreams, but it's also a desire of the people that you end up having around you. And one thing that Jonathan clearly expressed was he found himself where he had, more importantly, wise counsel. And so when we start talking about gold and silver and crypto, which is what we're going to get to in a little while, I'm excited to bring somebody to you who can actually explain these things to you. Now let's dig a little bit deeper into gold and silver. Jonathan, let's talk about, we see gold going to $3,000 an ounce. I'm a silver bug. What do you
Mm.
think is going to end up happening with silver? Because I'm hoping that silver will, they'll stop suppressing silver the way they've been suppressing it, man. Because it just makes no sense for silver to be at $33 an ounce.
Yeah.
I think maybe 33 or 32, considering the fact that everything around us needs silver. I mean, every electronic. They're talking about we're going to have an AI digital age. Well, how are you suppressing silver? Where do you see silver going?
Yeah, this is another great question. I used to be a gold bug myself, and I would say it was only about 3 years ago that I changed my portfolio holdings now, where I'm 70% heavy in silver and 30% in gold. It used to be the other way around. And the reason for me making that switch is kind of what you just hit on. Silver is extremely undervalued. When you look at industrial charts for silver, it grows year upon year. So the industrial resources is literally draining the supply. So when you just go back to a simple supply and demand economics charts, the demand is outstripping the supply. No new silver mines are being established. And even if they found a big silver mine tomorrow, it still takes 7 to 9 years to set up a mine, excavate the ore and refine it, etc. So silver is very undervalued right now. If you also look at the silver to gold ratio, there's a point where there's like an access where it's flashing a buy sign. We're on that right now. And when you talk about getting back to industrial uses for silver, whether it's military, electronics, big corporations now using silver for many different components, it really just goes to show you that the silver market is really gaining speed. Now, there's a gentleman by the name of Eric Sprott, and he's a big hedge fund manager, Sprott Investments, and he's very conservative, this gentleman. And I nearly not fell off my chair, because I think, I always say $50 to $75 an ounce for silver. When that's going to happen, we can talk about that. But, Eric Sprott saying $200, even $500 for an ounce of silver. And when you have like the Warren Buffetts of the world, but are kind of that name associated with the commodities market, you have to pay attention, because there's some big people out there saying some pretty wild numbers for silver. And these people are normally tight-lipped. They're very conservative. They don't come out with any, kind of irrational numbers without backing it up, because they'll get eggs on their face. So I think right now silver is extremely undervalued. I think silver is the buy. From a retail perspective, I can tell you that at our company, Genesis Gold Group, I would say the retail market is very healthy. I mean, we probably sell close to $20 million a month in silver, which may sound like a lot of money to you, but in this market, it's really nothing compared to other finances out there. But it tells me that the trend is your friend. And when I look at what people are buying, it's a good indicator of a good little snapshot of investor sentiment. And people maybe think that gold's too expensive and they want to get into precious metals. Silver seems less expensive. And even when people do buy silver, what are they buying, right? So are they buying big bars? Well, not necessarily. People are buying more small denomination silver, something tradable, something barterable. And when you said you like silver, I'm actually going to send you one of these. We actually manufacture and mint even some of our own products. And this here is called a prepper bar.
Oh, I love that bar.
I'm going to send you one. We call it Wealth in Your Wallet. It's minted in the USA. And I'll tell you why that's important in a minute, not just for patriotic reasons, but for other reasons that's happening with the tariff right now. But I call this Wealth in Your Wallet. Actually, here's my wallet. I'm going to try and keep it on camera. And I just keep it in here. Well, you can kind of get the idea, but I keep it in my wallet and it could just pull out. And the good thing about this, if we ever went to a cashless society, you can see these grooves in here. These are 1/10 of an ounce, 1/4 of an ounce, 20th of an ounce. And I can actually, if I wanted to, I'm not going to break this one off, but you can break these and use it as money, because ultimately gold and silver is a hedge, but silver is money. Gold is real money. We're in a fiat currency right now with the US dollar, which is drowning in debt, right? $36 trillion in debt. And all fiat currencies have a cycle. They have a beginning and they have an end. And we're getting close to an end cycle in the US dollar. And the more money that we're printing, and I always say, and I've said this for many years, that debt does matter. And we can't keep to expect printing money year after year and not have any ramifications from that. And in fact, our interest on the debt is more than our US national defense budget every year. So it's very frightening, these numbers. We're kind of distracted with the debt right now because the main headlines is the tariffs. You know, we're imposing tariffs on Mexico, we're imposing tariffs on Canada and on China. And the reason why I said, you know, made in the USA here is because nearly 50% of the silver production that's mined actually comes out of Mexico. And that silver, when it comes to America now, it's going to have a tariff on it. So I think in the short term, you're going to see some silver prices, the premiums at least, on the silver spike, especially when American-made and minted silver mines run out, and that supply is dwindling extremely quickly. So if these tariffs stay in effect, we could very well see higher prices for silver sooner rather than later. And I know I've had people, James, say to me, "Oh, I've invested in silver; it never moves. It's manipulated." And I think the silver price has been manipulated, but there's kind of like a capitulation where, you know, that's about to flip. You're going to see the other side now. And the other side is that silver is very undervalued. I personally see it hitting $50 to $75. Could it happen this year? Possibly next year? I would say absolutely, in my professional opinion. And eventually, long term for silver, you know, when these hedge fund billionaires are saying $200, possibly $500 for an ounce of silver, absolutely. I mean, people used to laugh at me when I was on stage saying gold's going to hit $2,000 an ounce. Well, where are we today? $3,000 an ounce. So it's inevitable that silver will get there. I think it's a great investment. I think it's very affordable for people to obtain, whether they're just buying it and stacking it, keeping it home, or like I mentioned earlier, you can put it in an IRA or 401k. And I think in this market, if you're looking for safety and security, but steady growth, that would tick the box for me.
No, I'm 100% in agreement with you. And I'm going to tell you like this, ladies and gentlemen, if you've been with me for a long time, you've heard me talk about silver, you've heard me talk about gold. It's just that I don't think that at that point in time, people had the hardcore interest, because we've gone through the phase where we finally gotten to the awakening of society. Like, people were in this haze where they were asleep, and now that people are starting to see it. And it was the people who were paying attention. It was like, hey man, you need to buy you some silver, buy you some gold, buy you some silver, buy you some gold. And many people will think, Jonathan, that it's too late. I've had friends who be like, man, it's too late to buy that gold. It's at $3,000 an ounce. I'm like, no, you crazy. I said, when I was buying gold back in the day, everybody was saying, man, it's too late. It's $300. Or when I first started buying silver and it was 12, man, that's too much money for silver. It used to be this. No, it's not too late. That's the whole point of it. And that's what people need to come to understand. That's why I like the small silver mini bar that can be broken off and you can have pieces in. Yeah, that one. Because, and I have quite a few of those already. I like that because when Mad Day comes and you actually need to be able to barter, you don't have to sit there and worry about how am I going to cut this 1 ounce silver bar into the weights that I need. And you definitely not going to overpay. You know what I'm saying? I'm definitely not going to overpay. So I love it. And guys, the reason why I want you to participate in this is because I know now is the time. There's ample evidence of what I would call it the reprieve that the financial system is kind of going through in America. But I don't think it's only a reprieve. I don't think it's like, oh, we may not have a complete financial crisis. I think we've been given a breather. And if the wrong people get in control again, and you see the amount of debt that we go into, Just for example, the cutting of US AID funding, where they were finding $20 billion going here, $1 billion going there. If we go back into a system where people start putting us in debt like that, the nation is going to be destroyed. And you have to understand, when America's economy is destroyed, then everything else starts to fall apart. That's why you see them doing, like Doge doing all the cutbacks, ladies and gentlemen. But even those cuts, and it's a lot of cuts, those cuts are not even enough at this point in time. And that's the scary thing about this, Jonathan. With them cutting the budget and cutting spending to where they're cutting it, it still doesn't seem like it's enough to lower the interest payments on the existing debt. I'm sitting there looking at it. I'm like, man, that's wild that we have those type of interest payments. Hopefully we'll see some tariffs bring in some money, but we got to go through a tariff war. And after you go to tariff war, you go to trade wars, then you go to a world war if things escalate, because it's all about a financial reset. It's a dangerous time, ladies and gentlemen. It really, really is. I mean, it truly is a dangerous time. And now is the time for you to partake in this. Now is the time for you. If you don't have any silver, get you some silver. If you don't have any gold, get you some gold. You don't have to get a whole ounce of gold. If you have an IRA that's invested in traditional stock market, I'm just going to say I wouldn't necessarily feel too comfortable with that right now. I just wouldn't. But either way it goes, I think Jonathan is the guy for you. All right, Jonathan, I want to switch gears because there's something else that you guys have. And this is Block Trust IRA, where you guys have ventured into the crypto market. The crypto market, man, is a place where fortunes are made and unfortunately fortunes are lost. And it's done at a split second. Talk to us a little bit about how you came about going into Block Trust IRA. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah. So obviously cryptocurrencies, the word crypto is in the press a lot right now. I heard of assets like Bitcoin in the early 2000s. It came across my desk, dismissed it. Okay, like most people, some people are way smarter than me, and then just rolled the dice and bought it, and then say, oh, I wish I would have held on to it longer. I first got involved in buying cryptocurrency, particularly Bitcoin, in about 2015. That's when I first made my first purchase of Bitcoin. And I bought it. I held on to it. I made some money, James. I sold it because I didn't fully believe in it. I fully didn't believe in it how I believe in gold, right? Gold, something tangible I could hold. There wasn't mass adoption. I was like, is this going to be here today, gone tomorrow? And obviously a lot of naysayers out there at the time too. This is a phase, this is a fad. Well, fast forward, and I've been watching the market very closely. And like some of the biggest financial minds out there, I admit when I'm wrong. And I was wrong about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And I feel people like me that know that they were wrong, when we find the light and head back in, we're all in on crypto.
Right.
And I saw the writing on the wall, and I knew that, once President Trump got into office, he was going to make the US the crypto capital of the world. It was inevitable. And understanding this and kind of getting back into the market. And again, people who purchase gold from us at Genesis, and we have thousands of clients here, they say the trend is your friend. How I mentioned you get a snapshot. Even though I believed in it, a lot of people were calling me, clients, friends, family, saying, hey, what do you know about this crypto? What do you think of crypto? Or they'll say to me, how do I buy it? I don't even understand how to buy this stuff. So I realized, look, crypto's here to stay. And we can kind of talk about that in a little bit. So the first question people say to me, how do I buy this safely and securely? So that's why we decided to create a platform, and we would let people on this platform purchase cryptocurrency safely and securely, and also put it in an IRA or 401k. So that was kind of the first purpose of Block Trust IRA, is to be able to invest in over 60 different cryptocurrencies. The second question I always get is what you just asked me. Well, isn't cryptocurrency risky? Isn't it volatile? And I say, absolutely. Cryptocurrency is volatile. And that's why we're probably most excited about this, because Block Trust IRA partnered with a company called Animus Technologies. And what Animus Technologies is a company that utilizes AI to predict when to get out at the top of the market and when to get back in at the very bottom. And how they do this is they literally have computer servers around the world. I mean, we're talking heavy duty servers, and they're computing millions and millions of data points. So just on Twitter X, they are computing maybe 10 million points a day on that. In fact, they had 2 servers in Ireland, and they got a letter from the Irish government saying, what the heck are you guys doing? You're quantifying more data than any other company out there. So they're what's known as a quant fund. That's the actual technical name for it. And through their AI tech, what they're able to do is they're able to beat the benchmark. Well, what does that mean? Well, if you have an asset like Bitcoin and you was to have purchased Bitcoin in 2022 and you just buy and hold, that's the only strategy that's available right now is a buy and hold strategy, you would actually be up over 425%, which is still amazing. No one's grumbling at that.
Return.
But with our Animus Technologies strategies, our clients are up over 640%. And how they do that is being to know when to sell out at the top and when to get back in. So a good example of this is I have my IRA with Block Trust IRA and have this Animus strategies. So do many of our clients. When Bitcoin was at 99,000, our AI system alerted our traders and they sold everyone's position when Bitcoin was at 99,000. Now, if you look at today, Bitcoin's in the low 80s and we still haven't bought back in yet. So we actually saved everyone like a 20 to 30% loss, because a few weeks ago, you actually had, yeah, there we go. You can see that red point there. My eye is probably not that good, but that drop, we got out near the very top and we avoided the drop. So a few weeks ago, there was a North Korean hack on an exchange. And all of a sudden, you had a lot of people fleeing the markets. Then you had President Trump announce he was adopting the Bitcoin strategy to add it to the US Treasury. But I think people were very bullish and they just thought that they were going to start buying Bitcoin. That didn't happen. But what the Trump administration has done is lay the groundwork to say, hey, cryptocurrency is here to stay. Bitcoin's going to be fully adopted on a state and local level, and we're going to add it to our US Treasury balance sheet like we're doing with gold. This is the beginning, and this is the very beginning of mass adoption. So you want to get into cryptocurrency for a couple of reasons right now. One, these measly returns that we've been kind of spoon-fed over the years, 6 to 11% a year, if we're lucky, doesn't even keep pace with inflation. And there's the biggest wealth transfer happening in the US history right now. And President Trump has clearly outlined what they plan to do. So if you're not adding cryptocurrency to your portfolio, you're going to get financially left behind, because people are looking to become financially independent. And this wealth transfer we are seeing has barely started, and it's happening right now. So if you can tax defer these gains and put assets like Bitcoin and Ethereum and others into your portfolio, such as an IRA or 401k, you really have a chance here to kind of separate yourself from the herd and become financially independent. Now, like with any investments, it carries risk, right? And the whole reason why we have this platform is to mitigate risk. And we love the word volatility now, because we need volatility to help make us money. So people can have an IRA or 401k with us. And we only have the strategy right now for Bitcoin and Ethereum. You can buy other cryptocurrencies, and we do plan on having this AI tech towards other crypto coins, but right now it's for Bitcoin and Ethereum. And when our system sold out at 99,000 and saw the market drop, people would call us and say, did we lose money? And we say, no, log in, check your balance. And they would log in and say, I don't understand how. And we're like, well, this is the AI system. It's like a watchdog. And it's almost like it will sit there 24/7, 365, because what's the most important thing to understand, James, about the cryptocurrency market? I used to be a trader, and there's an opening bell, there's a closing bell. And I can't even compete now with this AI technology, because cryptocurrency doesn't sleep. And you could be asleep and China could invade Taiwan. President Trump could sign some executive order, and that could
Mhm.
impact the market positively or negatively. And if it impacts the market negatively, you need to have these tools with cryptocurrency that is going to protect you and take you out of the market, put you back in cash, let the market drop, and then buy you back in where you're going to accumulate more coins and then ride it back up. It's obviously not an exact science, but it's pretty close. And this technology that we have through Animus Technologies, they actually won Bitcoin Magazine's best Bitcoin trading strategy around the globe. Like they're literally like the #1 Bitcoin strategy in the world. This strategy, up until now, has only been available to hedge funds and institutional investors. And the people that own this technology, I'm very fortunate enough to know them. And I said to them, why don't you bring this to the retail market? And they said, oh, we don't, we just deal with the hedge funds. This isn't for us. After a year of banging on them, I convinced them, you need to bring this to retail, because retail is the market I specialize in. And we was able to bring this technology to the retail market. So now you're getting the same play, the same advantage that these hedge funds have now on a retail level for your IRA and 401k. So if you're going to invest in cryptocurrency, I may be a little bit biased when I say this, but you definitely want to do it with us, because we have the tools to mitigate the downside risk, beat the benchmark, and nobody has anything like this out there. And it's almost like such an evolution jump in terms of how we do this. It's almost like I remember when the iPhone came out. Everyone remembers the iPhone, and
Yep.
it was like, wow, this is just like, this is like the Jetsons. Like we're just so far forward in the future now. This is just unbelievable. This is what we have for cryptocurrency. We have this tool that's so far advanced. There's nothing out there like this, that we can apply this to people's strategies, protect them, and maximize their upside risk. And that's what I'm probably most excited about crypto right now, because gold to me is safety and security. Crypto is a way to get ahead in life, to become financially independent. Because I've worked in these financial sectors for so long, and I know how these big banks work. They want to keep us in debt. They want to try and charge us these high fees. They want to nickel and dime us. And it's hard to kind of break through that firmament, right? It's hard to like break through to outer space. With this technology, through cryptocurrencies, we're able to provide those solutions for people to basically win.
I got you. I got to ask you a question though. Let's go into a scenario where someone rolled their IRA into block trust and they come upon a major life event. Will they still be able to access their funds like they would normally be able to access them in an IRA? Or is there any kind of special thing that will come back to haunt them?
No, that's actually a great question. Thank you for asking that. So, one of the reasons why I was also bought in to this technology is there's no lockup period. So,
Okay.
if someone bought it today and wants to cash out tomorrow, they 100% can. And the second reason, from a trading mindset, is there's no leverage. And as I've been a trader over the years, you may have like $100,000 controls $1 million, right?
You'll lose all
And
of it.
the market goes down, you get a margin call, and you got to cover your position, or you lose everything. Well, not with this. No margin call, no lockup, no leverage, just very sophisticated AI tech that tells people automatically when to get out at the top and then when to buy back in at the bottom. And it does this boom, 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 boom throughout the year. And that's how we beat the benchmark. It's very sophisticated, and it's a great product. And again, if you're looking at buying cryptocurrencies safely and securely, that's why we established this platform, and why we have this award-winning AI tech is to beat the benchmark and to basically beat the market, and we're doing that hands down right now.
Oh yeah, the fact that there's no leverage is such a huge selling point, because of the volatility of the crypto market. It will savage
Yeah,
you based upon
yeah,
that volatility. I mean, it's crazy. No, that's awesome, man.
yeah.
Guys, now I'm gonna tell you like this, ladies and gentlemen. Many of you, based on the demographics of the people that watch me and the people who are part of my website, many of you guys are your business owners and you're self-employed. This will be a great opportunity for you, whether it be gold or whether it be the crypto. Honestly, I'm leaning towards the crypto because I think that it's going to be such a great rate of return into the future. You'll find yourself where you're one of the elite in the future because you actually have Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. What I like about this is the temptation to, and I've been through this. There's a temptation when you buy Bitcoin and you literally have it with you. There's a temptation to get rid of it and exchange it for fiat because you're like, man, I bought this and I made $5,000. And there's this huge temptation to exchange it. And I know the traditional rules are, if you don't have it in your possession, then you don't own it. But at the same time, unless you are an extremely disciplined person, and I may be telling on myself right now, in many cases, it may be better for it to be on a platform so you can experience some growth. And for those of you guys who don't understand it, I believe this is a great opportunity for you to take advantage of it, even though you don't have to understand everything. Because there's a learning curve involved with buying crypto or trading crypto and everything else associated with it. So guys, I'm happy to be able to bring Jonathan here with you, and I'm happy for the time that Jonathan spent with us. And what you'll see down below is the link for where you should go to go ahead and access this, not only Genesis Gold Group, but Block Trust IRA itself, ladies and gentlemen. Jonathan, is there anything else you want to leave the audience with before we get out of here?
Yeah, when it comes to the cryptocurrency, I could tell, I love it that you're into cryptocurrency because people who are really into it understand that this is the future. And people who are trying to become more financially independent, they're looking for those alternative investments, but they don't want a pie in the sky. They don't want something, some dream sold to them. They want something credible, and they're looking for opportunities. We're so confident in our abilities to make people money in cryptocurrency, that the link that you're giving people today, they will be able to receive up to $2,500 funding bonus in crypto when they open up a managed cryptocurrency account with us. We're that confident that we'll put our money where our mouth is, that we're offering up to $2,500 funding bonus in crypto when they start with us. And I don't know anybody that does anything like that. But again, you own the crypto, you're in full control. There's no lockup, there's no leverage. It's just the same as buying crypto on any other base like Coinbase, for example. The only difference is you have a managed strategies around this, and there's nothing like this on the market. It's only been available to hedge funds and institutional investors, and we've built this with the first to market. We're backed by Bitcoin Magazine as the #1 globally recognized trading solutions for Bitcoin, and that's really what they're getting when obviously they're working with Block Trust IRA.
Let's take it one more step further. Let's say 10 people gather the courage to follow the link, and then what should they expect when you guys contact them? How is the process going to go?
I think I always tell people, whether it's gold or whether it's crypto, never jump in. The first thing you want to do is get an education. So there's some tools that we provide people, like Genesis Gold Group. We have like an investor library. We have ebooks on, gold, silver, what's happening in the economy. Same for cryptocurrency. At Block Trust IRA, they can get an e-guide, they can get an education, and probably more importantly, we have a Calendly, and they can book a consultation call with us, so they can speak to us. Because sometimes, people, we're US based, even though that this is actually cryptocurrency is a very funny thing with the crypto, is that when we started the cryptocurrency, we started getting phone calls from where I'm from, London, England, Australia, New Zealand, Netherlands, of all places as well, and Canada. So it's not just for people here in the US, it's also for worldwide. Obviously, people here in the US who have IRAs and 401ks, they want to have these tax deferred exposure to Bitcoin, and it really makes sense. So again, it's about getting an education. They can book a time to speak to any of us. They can get some literature to read up about it and take it one step at a time. But I will say this, the crypto revolution is here. It's not going away. President Trump has adamantly made it very apparent that America is going to be the cryptocurrency capital of the world. We've got full adoption of cryptocurrency now on a state and a local level, where we're adding assets like Bitcoin to our US Treasury sheet, just like we're holding gold. So cryptocurrency is the future. And I would say, whether you're starting small or just want exposure to the market, now is the time to be involved in what I call the crypto revolution, because it's the biggest wealth transfer in history that's currently happening right now.
Nope, I have to agree 100%. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a fantastic hour that we spent with Jonathan, and I'm pretty sure I'll be able to get Jonathan back on in the future. Jonathan, I'm gonna tell you what I would like to do is tap into you guys later on as world events happen, because this news cycle is crazy, but there's certain economic events that happen where we'll need someone to talk about those things and how it's going to affect commodities, gold, silver, and Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And so I look forward to having you back on and do that, because we're in that time period where it's just super dynamic. And I want my audience I want them to profit while everybody else is like literally being destroyed, because we're in the information age, and whoever presents the best information to you is how you're going to be successful. And whoever knows how to find the best information. So I know we have you as a source for great information. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be back with Jonathan soon. And Jonathan, again, I want to thank you for coming on. And it's been fantastic, my friend. It's been absolutely fantastic.
Thank you, sir. My pleasure.